Naruto, a complete history of the Shinobi world. Prologue, a world about to change. Long before the Hidden Leaf Village stood beneath the shadow of Hokage Rock, before the five great nations drew borders across the continent, before shinobi carried headbands bearing the symbols of their villages, before chakra flowed through human hands, the world was an ordinary one. There were no ninja, no tailed beasts roamed the wilderness, no villages trained children to become warriors. There were no techniques capable of summoning storms, creating mountains of stone, or reducing entire forests to ash. The world of Naruto was not born with these things, it became them. Long before recorded history, humanity lived much as countless civilizations throughout our own history had lived. People gathered in small communities, cultivated the land, hunted the forests, fished the rivers, and built villages wherever nature allowed them to survive. Kings and local rulers governed their territories. Families passed their customs from one generation to the next. Conflicts were settled with conventional weapons rather than supernatural power. Spears, swords, bows, shields, and human strength decided the outcome of wars. The details of this earliest age have largely been lost to time. Unlike later periods of history, almost no written records survive from before the arrival of chakra. What little is known comes from fragments of ancient accounts preserved thousands of years later. Entire civilizations may have risen and fallen before a single shinobi ever walked the earth. Yet one thing is certain: humanity existed. People loved, fought, traded, explored, and dreamed long before anyone had ever heard the word chakra. For untold generations, the world changed only through the slow march of ordinary history. Kingdoms expanded before collapsing into smaller territories. Children inherited the traditions of their parents. New settlements were built while older ones disappeared beneath forests and fields. To those living during this forgotten age, there was no reason to believe history would ever become anything more than the story of mankind itself. They had no way of knowing that they were being watched. Far beyond the skies of Earth, among the stars themselves, there existed beings so ancient and so powerful that humanity would one day worship them as gods. These beings were not native to the planet. Earth was simply another destination, another world among countless others. For the Otsutsuki clan, planets were not homes to be explored. They were resources to be consumed. Across unimaginable spans of time, members of the clan traveled from world to world, cultivating enormous entities known as divine trees. These trees absorbed every ounce of life from an entire planet. Every living thing, every forest, every animal, every civilization would eventually become nourishment for a single fruit. When the fruit matured, an Otsutsuki would consume it, dramatically increasing their own power before continuing onward to another world. The process left nothing behind. To the Otsutsuki, this was not cruelty. It was simply the natural order of existence. Entire civilizations meant little compared to their endless pursuit of evolution. Earth was never meant to be different. At some point in humanity's distant past, one such mission was assigned. Two members of the Otsutsuki clan were chosen to travel to a small blue world whose inhabitants had never witnessed true supernatural power. One was among the highest-ranking members of the clan, a warrior whose strength surpassed almost every being he would ever encounter. His name was Ishiki Otsutsuki. The other possessed extraordinary abilities in her own right. Calm, calculating, and immensely powerful, she served as Ishiki's partner on the mission. Her name was Kaguya Otsutsuki. Together they descended towards Earth, carrying with them the means to forever change the course of history. to humanity below. Their arrival would have appeared no different from countless natural events witnessed throughout history. Perhaps they crossed the heavens as brilliant streaks of light. Perhaps they descended unnoticed beneath the cover of darkness. No surviving record describes the moment they first reached the planet's surface. What matters is not how they arrived. What matters is that, from the instant their feet touched Earth's soil, the history of mankind ceased to belong entirely to mankind. Every war that would one day be fought, every hidden village that would eventually rise, every Kage, every Shinobi, every legendary battle, every triumph, and every tragedy, all of it can be traced back to two figures who arrived from the stars with a purpose humanity could never have imagined. They had not come to rule, they had not come to teach, they had not come to save. They had come to harvest an entire world. And before long, one of them would betray the other, forever altering not only the fate of Earth, but the destiny of the Otsutsuki clan itself. That betrayal marks the true beginning of recorded shinobi history. It is there that our story truly begins. Chapter 1. The Otsutsuki Clan. If humanity was the first civilization to shape the history of Earth, then the Otsutsuki were the first civilization to shape the history of the universe. By the time mankind built its first kingdoms, discovered agriculture, and learned to forge iron into weapons, the Otsutsuki had already existed for so long that even they likely measured time in ways that ordinary civilizations could never comprehend. Their story stretches so far into the distant past that no known record identifies the true beginnings of their race. Neither the manga nor the official data books reveal the world from which they originated, the circumstances of their evolution, or how they first acquired the extraordinary abilities that would one day make them appear godlike to every civilization they encountered. Their earliest history has been completely erased by time. Yet despite these unknowns, enough pieces remain to reconstruct the society they had become by the time Earth entered their path. Unlike humanity, the Otsutsuki did not build empires by conquering neighboring nations. Their ambitions extended far beyond a single planet. They were an interstellar clan whose existence revolved around a single purpose: continual evolution. To them, power was never something to protect or merely possess. It was something that had to be endlessly increased. Every generation sought to surpass the one before it. Every new source of chakra represented another step toward perfection. The universe itself became their hunting ground. Rather than settling worlds, the Otsutsuki harvested them. Across countless star systems, they searched for planets capable of supporting abundant life. A thriving world was not viewed as an independent civilization worthy of diplomacy. It was a potential nourishment. Every forest, every ocean, every animal, every intelligent species, and every microscopic organism contained life energy. Left untouched, that energy would remain scattered across billions of individual living things. The Otsutsuki had discovered a way to gather all of it into a single source. That source was the divine tree. To civilizations unfortunate enough to witness its growth, the divine tree would have seemed almost supernatural. Its roots spread across entire continents, burrowing deep beneath mountains, rivers, and oceans. They absorbed the natural energy of the planet itself, while simultaneously draining the life force of every living organism connected to the world. Nothing escaped its reach. Over time, all of that stolen vitality accumulated within the tree until it produced a single chakra fruit. To the Otsutsuki, this fruit represented the culmination of an entire world's existence. Consuming it granted an immense increase in power, allowing the clan member who ate it to evolve beyond their previous limits. In essence, an entire planet, along with every civilization that had ever existed upon it, could be reduced to fuel for a single individual. Once the harvest was complete, the world itself was left ruined. Whether lifeless or merely incapable of recovering, its purpose had ended. The Otsutsuki would simply continue onward. This process was not treated as an atrocity within their society. Nothing in the surviving canon suggests that members of the clan debated the morality of consuming inhabited worlds. On the contrary, the practice appears to have been accepted as the natural order of their civilization. The destruction of one planet was insignificant compared to the eternal pursuit of greater power. To an Otsutsuki, sacrificing billions of lives was no more emotionally significant than harvesting grain from a field might have been to an ordinary farmer. Understanding this difference in perspective is essential. Throughout later history, humanity would repeatedly describe certain individuals as gods. Hagoromo became known as the sage of the six paths. Kaguya became the rabbit goddess. Madara sought divine power. Pain proclaimed himself a god who would force peace upon the world. The Otsutsuki never claimed divinity. They simply existed on a level so far beyond ordinary human experience that the distinction no longer mattered. By the standards of Earth, they were gods. By the standards of their own people, they were simply members of an ancient clan. Their extraordinary abilities reflected that difference. Every known Otsutsuki possessed immense chakra reserves that dwarfed even the strongest human shinobi. Their bodies aged slowly, if at all, allowing them to survive for centuries or even millennia. Space itself posed little obstacle. They could travel between dimensions, create portals across vast distances, and survive environments that would instantly kill ordinary life. Their dojutsu granted perception beyond anything later developed by human bloodlines, and every encounter suggested that their understanding of chakra far exceeded what humanity would eventually rediscover. Yet even beings this powerful followed rules. One of the most remarkable aspects of Otsutsuki society is that it does not appear to have been entirely chaotic. Individual members pursued immense personal power, but they also operated within an established hierarchy. Higher-ranking members commanded authority over those beneath them. Missions were assigned rather than chosen arbitrarily. Partnerships existed, and those partnerships were not necessarily equal. By the time Earth entered their plans, this hierarchy had already placed two specific individuals together. Ishiki Otsutsuki held the superior position. Kaguya Otsutsuki served beneath him. The exact nature of their relationship remains one of the more mysterious aspects of Otsutsuki history. They were not husband and wife, in any conventional human sense, despite later legends that sometimes portray them as such, nor were they depicted as friends. Their partnership existed because their society required cooperation to complete the harvesting process. One member would ultimately become the sacrifice necessary to cultivate the divine tree, while the other would consume the resulting chakra fruit. This cycle was fundamental to how the clan reproduced its power across the cosmos. It is a chilling system because it reveals that even members of the Otsutsuki clan were not entirely exempt from sacrifice. Advancement demanded cost. Worlds died. Entire species vanished. Even one of their own might be offered up if it meant producing a greater harvest. Exactly how long Kaguya and Ishiki traveled together before reaching Earth is unknown. They may have harvested other planets. They may have completed numerous missions over the course of centuries. Canon leaves that portion of their history deliberately vague. What is clear is that by the time they approached Earth, they were experienced participants in a process that had likely been repeated countless times throughout the universe. To them, Earth was not unique. It was simply the next assignment. No surviving record suggests that they expected resistance. Why would they? Humanity possessed no chakra. There were no shinobi, no tailed beasts, no legendary warriors capable of threatening beings who crossed the void between worlds. The inhabitants of Earth would have appeared primitive compared to the civilization descending from the stars. From that perspective of the Otsutsuki, the mission should have unfolded exactly as every previous mission had. Plant the divine tree, allow it to mature, harvest the chakra fruit, consume the fruit, and leave. Nothing about Earth should have distinguished it from the countless other worlds that had already been consumed. But history is often shaped by the moments no one anticipates. Somewhere between the stars and the surface of an ordinary blue world, something changed. Whether it was fear, ambition, compassion, or a motive still hidden from history, Kaguya made a decision that no member of her clan was ever meant to make. Instead of following the ancient cycle that had sustained the Otsutsuki for untold ages, she turned against the partner sent to Earth beside her. That single act of betrayal would alter the fate of humanity forever. For if Kaguya had remained loyal to her mission, the history of the Shinobi world would never have existed at all. The divine tree would have consumed the planet, the chakra fruit would have been harvested as intended, and Earth would have become nothing more than another forgotten world left behind by an immortal clan searching endlessly for greater power. Instead, Earth became the only known world to interrupt the cycle. And that interruption began with the arrival of two figures whose names would echo throughout every era that followed: Ishiki Otsutsuki and Kaguya Otsutsuki.